Lilo and Stitch is a movie that, for many people, was an instant classic and held very close to our hearts. It was not only incredibly unique with its beautiful and soft art style, an art style that was specifically designed to give everything a rounded look, like you'd stuck a straw into every object and puffed them up like a balloon, with watercolor backgrounds and incredibly unique character designs. But it also touched on something that more people have had to deal with in an incredibly beautiful way. That being family, whether biological or found. Nani was a surfing prodigy with a room full of trophies who gave up her dreams in order to raise her baby sister after their parents tragically died in a car accident. She's struggling, still a kid herself really, but she doesn't want to lose her only remaining family and knows that Lilo would struggle without someone who understands how she is. Lilo is a very unique child. It's never stated explicitly, but many people have headcanoned her as being autistic, and I can see why. She has difficulty understanding the social cues of her peers, has a lot of unusual ideas about how the world around her works, and sometimes boundaries seem to be a little different where she's concerned. Her and Nani being native Hawaiians isn't just an aesthetic choice either. Their culture plays into the story in quite a few ways, though there was an iconic scene that got cut that I really wish they'd kept in the final film. In the scene, Lilo is walking along and gets stopped by tourists who are less than considerate of her and treat her more like a novelty or like she's somehow stupid. One of them just shouting, "Hey, speak English," at her before demanding to know where the beach is. This demonstrates how tourists often treat native peoples in the places they go to, more like part of their tour rather than living, breathing people worthy of respect. Lilo sees a shop owner sweeping her porch, who tells her that there's going to be a siren test that day. Lilo goes to the beach, where she is once again treated like a novelty by the tourists crowding the area, getting photos taken of her and her appearance commented on. She announces to the tourists that the siren up on the pole is a tsunami siren, which is the only warning that they will get that a giant, dangerous wave would be coming, so if they hear it, they'd better run for their lives, before telling them, "Tourists, prepare to die." At which point the siren goes off, and the panicked tourists flee. Cobra Bubbles witnesses the whole thing while raising an eyebrow at Lilo, who just tells him, "If you lived here, you'd understand." This scene should absolutely not have been cut, in my opinion, but I suppose the executives decided that some of the tourists who like to spend money at their parks might get offended, so they chopped it. The way that Lilo would take pictures of the tourists, particularly overweight and sunburnt ones, showed her dealing with being objectified by them in her own way, namely, by objectifying them back. She wasn't doing it in a hateful way, but she certainly didn't ask their permission before taking their pictures either. Family holds incredible importance in Native Hawaiian culture. From what I've seen and heard, family ties are even stronger and held in higher regard with them than even the Choctaw tend to, and that's really saying something. Not only was there that aspect of it, and the obvious fear that Nani would have of losing her only remaining family after losing her parents, and the fact that Lilo would have such a hard time around people who don't understand her the way her sister does, but there was a cultural aspect that goes much deeper. In the scene when Nani and Lilo are on the hammock, when Nani feels like she's failed, when Cobra is going to come and take Lilo away the next day, she sings to Lilo. The song she sings is Aloha Oi, a song written by Queen Liliuokalani. The title means farewell to thee, and many people saw it as the Queen's farewell to her people, as well as an apology for being unable to protect them from the violence of the colonists when America annexed the islands via a coup in 1898 after the nation had been weakened by diseases, political unrest, and other problems introduced by the colonists, becoming a U.S. territory until it was made a state in 1959. I don't think the choice of song was a happy coincidence. I think the writers were giving a nod to the history of the islands and their violent takeover, families being ripped apart, and the suffering so many of their people endured. Many native cultures suffered, and to this day, some still do, from their children often being taken under the guise of protective care, or claims that their homes are unfit, being placed instead in boarding schools or with families who are not of native heritage. Through this process, they would lose their cultural heritage. A lot of the time, they wouldn't be allowed to speak their native languages or engage in any of their cultural practices. Many, many children died in these places. Canada is still finding graveyards full of children who were stolen from their families in the name of cultural progress, murdered because they weren't what the people in control decided was the ideal. There are laws against this kind of thing now, at least in North America, but that doesn't entirely stop it from happening, nor does it stop a lot of racially based violence against natives, particularly women. Disney rarely has the guts to outright call this kind of thing out, but they do sometimes give nods to it that those who aren't familiar with history or don't care can easily miss and won't think about. But those of us who have experienced it or who know the history can catch those little hints and appreciate them. In the end, not only do Nani and Lilo get to stay together so Lilo can grow up with her family and culture, but their family grows. Not only with Stitch, but with Jumba, Pleakley, David, and even Cobra basically coming together to be all one big, mismatched, but still good, Ohana, that care deeply about one another. The TV series carried on with this, their family growing with each new experiment they discovered and found a place and purpose for. The remake threw all of this out the window. Obviously, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it or for some unfathomable reason want to see it, you'll need to stop right here. Please, if you are going to see it, just sail the high seas for it and don't give them any money. Every dollar that they get, even if you're hate watching, convinces them that people will still pay for it and they can still make money off of this and they'll do it again. I swear, if they decide to do a remake of Princess and the Frog and they turn Lottie, who is quite possibly the best animated character and best friend ever to exist, into a spoiled rich girl, I will drive to wherever Iger lives with a barbecue pit in my truck so I can fry him on it. Anyway, the remake follows the main story beats, but in a very robotic way. Like someone only saw the movie once while they were really sick and remembered the basic gist of the plot, but not what actually made it good. The pacing is terrible, and the actual people feel just as fake as the hideous CGI monstrosities. Jumba is no longer the eccentric, self-proclaimed evil genius who is clearly still good at heart and helps out in the end that we knew and loved. Now he's just straight up evil and cruel because they needed a bad guy. Why did they need a bad guy? Well, for one, Gantu, the strict captain in the original, is no longer here, so they need to pass his antagonistic nature on to Jumba. This doesn't really work, for two reasons. One, a big part of what made the first movie so fun was how hilarious Jumba and Pleakley were, and the softer moments they had where we saw Jumba's real heart. By removing the hilarity of his and Pleakley's interactions, not to mention the humor in their disguises being so terrible, but fooling everyone anyway somehow, you make the movie a lot less enjoyable. It also destroys the found family aspect of the original, one of the truly best elements in it. For another, Gantu wasn't evil either. He was certainly cruel and cold sometimes, but he was also really funny and, this is the big one, just doing his job. As far as he and the councilwoman who ordered him to go to Earth know, Stitch is a dangerous, out-of-control experiment that could cause untold damage, not only to Earth, but to the galaxy at large. Capturing him isn't some search for glory and profit, it's his duty to the Galactic Federation he's sworn to protect. He's basically trying to stop a dangerous criminal from hurting anyone. He might have been rather cruel and careless with how he went about it, especially with how he treated Lilo when he did capture them, but to be fair, the aliens apparently had a very low opinion of humans, if they knew about them at all, and considered them unintelligent. He probably saw Lilo the same way someone would see a really weird rodent. It wasn't his job to worry about her. It was his job to catch Stitch and return him to custody where the threat he presented could be neutralized. He wasn't evil, just kind of a jerk who took his job too seriously. All of the cultural aspects and references of the original are also gone. Hawaii is basically just used aesthetically here, without any concern for the culture of its people or its history. They also toned down the characters a lot. Lilo is no longer the unique, sometimes bratty, but always funny and clearly acting the way she does out of pain and having a different way of seeing the world little girl that she was in the animated movie. Here, she's very bland. They have her go through a few similar acts, but very sanitized, and not nearly so heartfelt or interesting. Nani isn't the loving, somewhat frazzled, but always determined to make sure Lilo gets what she needs and never loses her shine sister that she once was. In the animated movie, Nani did anything she could to make sure Lilo never blamed herself for the bad things that happened to them. Even when it was directly because of her, like when Nani told Lilo that no, she hadn't lost her job because of Lilo. She lost it because her boss was a vampire and wanted her to become one too. Playing into Lilo's beliefs in the supernatural, probably remembering something that Lilo had said once before, considering Lilo's response of, "I knew it." She didn't want Lilo to feel like their financial problems were her fault, and took full responsibility for making sure that Lilo was safe and provided for. The live-action Nani is nothing like that. They try to show her being loving and all, but it's quickly killed by how she treats Lilo when she gets frustrated, or when anything bad happens. She's quick to shut down Lilo's fantastical ideas and to tell her that her ideas might be nice and all, but this is reality and her fairy tales mean nothing. This Nani clearly doesn't hold family in the same regard as her animated counterpart, doesn't have the same desperation to hold things together, doesn't even have the same struggles. One of the main struggles that Nani faced was that she was basically doing everything alone. David tried to help out as much as he could, but he couldn't do a whole lot either, though he did his best to be there for both Nani and Lilo. Seriously, animated David is the best boyfriend. He's kind and understanding and does what he can to help at every chance. Other than him, though, Nani didn't really have anyone else. They didn't have grandparents or any other family in the picture. In the live-action film, Nani has a lot of help around her. Not only David, who is a complete idiot in this version, but a grandmotherly neighbor who looks after Lilo for her whenever she needs and basically solves all her problems, besides holding a job, that the original Nani had. She's not frazzled and struggling and scared like the animated Nani. She just mostly seems annoyed at Lilo for existing and holding her back from what she wants to do. What did she want to do, you ask? Oh, well, instead of being a surfer like the original Nani, this one wants to be a marine biologist. Fair enough, marine biology is awesome and I'd love to be able to study it myself, and she's in Hawaii, which has one of, if not the best marine biology schools in the world. And many of the colleges have free tuition for native Hawaiians, so she could easily get through schooling without owing a dime, and could probably even get assistance to take care of herself and Lilo while she was in school. Wait, she wants to go to California? To a university there? Why? I mean, California's great if you can foot the cost of living and avoid Bakersfield, but she could go to school in Hawaii for the same thing for free and stick near her family and her people. There's no reason at all for her to go to the mainland, except, I suppose, to give her a reason to need to leave Lilo behind, which is what she does. Yes, you heard that right. All of the Ohana means family, refusing to abandon those you love, the responsibility she took on when her baby sister had no one else. That all goes out the window. Instead, she happily dumps Lilo into foster care so she can leave to go to college, completely destroying the message of the original. It's almost like the director is a bitter, hateful person whose wife and kids left him because he was awful or something, and he decided that family is bull and leaving everyone behind is totally the best way to live, and you should forget those you cared about. He sure did put a strange amount of focus on having Jumba burn the pictures of Nani and Lilo's family. Maybe someone should have a sit-down with him, maybe bring in a therapist for a chat. Everyone's characters are completely assassinated. David is an idiot, Cobra Bubbles isn't all intimidating or caring, and is instead a CIA conspiracy nutjob who just chases them around. There's a new social worker who is sort of supposed to fill the role that the original Bubbles did, but she falls pretty flat. Lilo isn't interesting. Nani has no loyalty or concern for family bonds or for Lilo's needs, and basically gives out the message that acting in your own self-interest is the best thing you can do in a given situation, no matter who is counting on you. Jumba and Pleakley have lost everything that made them good characters. Stitch is okay, but they removed a lot of his humor and how lovable he was, and the lessons he learned, and just replaced it with fart jokes. I am so sick of toilet humor being the go-to for kids' movies these days. Look, Disney, we get it. You're all about making money and pretty much always have been. but you can do that without desecrating your earlier works. There are so many new stories out there to tell, or even old ones that you haven't touched on yet that could be brought to life in unique ways. You want to do more stuff with different races? Great! How about you tell some of their stories and legends and folklore, like you did with Mulan, instead of just race-swapping people into European stories? Tell the story of Hiawatha and the Five Nations, or of Anansi the spider. There are so many legends and stories around the world that could be brought to life in beautiful, unique ways. You've touched on some Polynesian, which is nice, but you could do so much more with that with other cultures. Branch out. Stop ruining stories that were just fine the way they were and give telling something new a shot. And try to do it actually, well, instead of depending on nostalgia to get everybody to pay for heartless slop. If you have a kid that you want to watch movies with, stick to the original animated versions, not the soulless cash grab remakes. They have nothing to offer, not even half-decent music. Even the music writers who used to make absolute bangers are just basically tossing half-hearted trash into these films. If you want your kids to learn lessons about love, hard work, bravery, acceptance, responsibility, avoid the remakes like the plague. They have nothing to offer you or anyone else. They're just attempts to wring a few more dollars out of people's nostalgia and the hope that kids will watch anything, no matter how terrible. Thank you for joining me again. I'm working on a possible second channel where I will read folktales and various stories for people who are curious about stories they may have not heard before, just want to hear their favorites being told, or just want something to listen to as background noise. I'll post when I've got that up and running, but in the meantime, be safe, be kind to those around you, and I'll see you in the next one.